Good evening, folks, and welcome to Alien Addict on a fine, luxurious evening. Tonight we have Courtney Brown, who conducts the finest remote viewings known to man, literally. I'm looking forward to this. We've had remote viewers on in the past, but we haven't had one with such a good reputation on, like Courtney. Not that as the others have not had the best of reputations, guys. We still love you, but this Courtney's director of Farsight. You may have heard of that. Before we get our guest on tonight, I just want to remind you all: you can like, share, and subscribe. It's free. Also, guys, we have changed our podcast provider. Which, Lee, we have changed podcast providers, haven't we?
We have. Thanks for bringing me in, Ollie, when I was typing in the chat. That's great, that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Much. It's all professional here. And welcome, David, my lad. Our podcast has moved.
Effectively, no, not for anybody else. So, the only thing people need to know is if they follow us on Spotify, you might need to check your app, see if you're getting the podcast from us. If not, research and look for Alien Addict, because there was a new Spotify link created when we changed hosts. Everyone else is the same. Do not worry about it.
Beautiful. And also the t-shirts, people, there is literally a couple of weeks left before they're going to be removed and replaced by new ones. But just a massive thank you to Fishlock, who's kindly sent us this picture of him sat having a beer in the L. Dave Sasquatch t-shirt. We thank you, my friend. Without further ado, Courtney Brown from Farsight, welcome to Alien Addict.
Hey guys, it's great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, you've been around for quite some time.
Yeah, I've been doing this for quite a while. This is a long-term effort. They have a phrase among the Jewish community in New York. It's not known to the Jewish community outside of New York, like North Carolina, California. But in New York, I didn't even know it was a Jewish phrase when I was living in New York until I got out of New York. But you have to say it with a shrug. It goes like this: you just have to live long enough. So whenever you have enemies, you just take care of yourself. You just have to live long enough, and you can defeat the enemies, and you'll be the last one standing.
So what got you started in remote viewing?
Well, I'm an academic. I'm a professor at a major university, Emory University. Now, I do not do any of this stuff with remote viewing or studying aliens or anything like that at the university. There I teach math courses and political science courses in the political science department, mostly statistics and nonlinear math in the department. But outside of the university, I'm the CEO for Farsight. And Farsight is two things. It's a nonprofit educational research organization, and it's also a movie business, which is called Farsight. Well, it's Farsight, but we have our own streaming service like Farsight. It's called FarsightPrime.com, and it's totally equivalent to Netflix, Hulu, Disney, but with remote viewing content. But on a technical level, it's equivalent to the best. And I got started in doing this when the U.S. military program actually came out that was back in the 1990s that they released that there was something that was going on. I learned the original military procedures for doing remote viewing and wrote one book using those procedures. And then I decided I didn't really like that, but I decided the procedures could be improved. So by that time we had started the Farsight Institute, and we did a long process of improving the procedures and getting them better.
So
Go
those
ahead.
procedures, would that have been the gateway tapes that came
Oh,
out?
that was one of the things I did when I was starting out. I went to the Monroe Institute and I did the Gateway Experience tapes, and I did the Gateway course at the Monroe Institute, and that was very eye-opening because they use a very interesting technology using something called hemisync, where they put one frequency in one ear and one very close frequency in another ear, and that produces a beat frequency that sort of puts you into a trance, and then you can see altered things. But that's not what we use now. We don't use any of that now, and so we have our own way of doing this. It's much improved over the military procedures. The military still does remote viewing. It's really big. It's bigger now than it was in the old days. But the old people that came out, they don't ever talk about that, and then they deny that it even exists. But the reality is, the military never left it. It's a really big important thing. But our procedures we're civilian. Farsight is civilian, and we developed our procedures. Well, I can't really say we developed them on our own. In January of 2023, we became aware that they're basically, let me cut to the chase and I'll come back. There are two basic groups of extraterrestrials. There's many different species. You're starting to hear a lot about them on congressional hearings in the United States with David Grush, whistleblowers that have Pentagon clearance. Pentagon is totally split. So David Grush, with Pentagon clearance, is giving these testimonies in front of Congress. The other half of the Pentagon is saying, we have no evidence of anything going on at all. So they're totally fragmented and split. However, there are among the extraterrestrials, and there are two basic groups. We call them the good ETs and the bad ETs. So the bad ETs are the ones that have formal written agreements with the U.S. government and a few other governments to operate here on Earth. Now, that's just not me talking. That's also Chaim Ashed, the former head of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years, plus a decorated general, plus he's now a professor. But Chaim Ashed, he's the Israeli version of NASA, and he was the head of it for 30 years. He has publicly stated, although he thought he was going to get away with it, he did it in Hebrew, and he thought he'd get away with it. Trouble was, it turned out that a lot of people knew Hebrew, and it was immediately translated into a zillion languages, and so now and published all over the place. But he has said a whole bunch of stuff, including the fact that there are written agreements between the U.S. government and extraterrestrials. Those written agreements with the extraterrestrials are with what we call the bad ETs. We were told that the bad ETs were going to have something like a false flag, Project Bluebeam type of thing against us at Farsight, because we were becoming so well known and so prominent. They were going to say that aliens have infiltrated us and that we're we're actually an attack vector for humanity, and humanity has to be protected from Farsight. So when we heard that, well, you can introduce yourself only once. After you've been introduced to people, that's it. You have to correct the record or you miss it. So you can introduce yourself only once. So at that point, we decided to come completely clean with our extraterrestrial background. And the reason I'm mentioning this at this point is you asked about our remote viewing procedures. When did I become interested in remote viewing? I've been actually interacting with, on a physical level, and dealing with extraterrestrials since I was a kid. And when I was a kid, there used to be two gray guys on my left and two gray guys on my left when I was sleeping. They were there most basically all night. And this is not something I brought back with hypnosis or anything like that. They were just there, and they didn't do anything. And I always wondered what they were doing, but they were like standing guard. Anyway, so, and I had many, many, many things happen during a lifetime. I won't go into them all now, but when the remote viewing project came out, I'm a human, born of a human mother, raised with humans. I went through the entire human educational process. I'm here. I'm one of you guys. I'm one of everybody else. But I've been guided along the way constantly. And when the remote viewing project came out, I was told point blank, we want you to go and learn from XYZ. Start there. We want you to start doing that. They were the ones who got me to learn how to meditate. I had to learn all this stuff by myself. So, I mean, it was like I didn't drop out of the sky and know everything. I had to go through whatever was available with human tech. So I learned the military procedures. It's very interesting how they tell me how to do these things, but nonetheless, they told me specifically what to do. And then after we did the entire things, and I started up the Farsight Institute, and we had a whole bunch of people working here. We needed to change them because they were not specific enough. They didn't give us the information we wanted. They were too general, too unstructured. And so we started to adapt them, and I made a holy mess of it. I couldn't figure out what to do. So they came in and they started to give us information on how to fix them. So it was more like going to a graduate, like you have a professor and you're a graduate student. They would give us nudges along the way. And some of these contacts have been just plain physical, like you and me. Mm-hmm. And some of them have been mental, but we've had constant interactions. Anyway, that's how we came up with.
When you say interactions, sorry to butt in there, but do you mean like actually they are there with you?
Yeah, like standing right there, and you can see them. And they got to a point where we wanted to have video recordings of these things because we needed to show people that we were getting advice. So we started up this a video program that we have. We show it on farsightprime.com called Conversations with Harvey. And Harvey was named, it was called Harvey. That's not his real name, but it was called Harvey because of it was a takeoff from the stage play as well as the movie Harvey that starred Jimmy Stewart, mm-hmm. where Harvey was a puka. For those guys in Britain, you know about that. It's an Irish fairy tale. Anyway, it was an invisible human-sized rabbit, a puka, and like an Irish spirit. Anyway, and so so Jimmy Stewart could see Harvey, but nobody else could see Harvey. So he's an invisible, huge rabbit. And by the end of the play, some other people were starting to see him and get freaked out and so on. Anyway, so we call this extraterrestrial Harvey. And we have regular meetings with Harvey, and he comes with a complete entourage of ships and everything. Everything's invisible. You can't see anything. And people always say, are you serious? You're actually telling me you're having a conversation, telepathic conversation with an invisible alien? I say, yeah, actually we are. And so what we did was, on one thing, we had a project where we took all of our remote viewers, which are the absolute best remote viewers on the mm-hmm. planet Earth. They have been trained. They do this full time. This is how they pay their rent. They are the best of the best. They don't do this as a hobby. And also they do everything totally under totally blind conditions and very defendable scientific conditions. And when you get 4 or 5 remote viewers working alone, independent of each other, all coming up with the exact same thing, it's very convincing. And we put it all on video. And all the video of them doing the sessions is done live when they're totally blind to the target. We had them go and actually look at a target. The target was the conversations we were having with Harvey. And that was shocking even to them. They said, holy mackerel. So, they were actually describing the entire place, where it was taking place, the people, the communications. So that's individual. Now you can say, well, why are they doing this? Why don't they just show themselves? We just came out with a project. About UFO crashes. Actually, it's ongoing. We came out mm-hmm. with the first one, and there's 3 more installations to come out. 1 this month and 2 next month. Of David Grush and the Congress. He's
done very well. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you actually know him?
No. He's just taking a piss. Okay. We don't know him, but we know of him.
You know of him.
I like him.
David Grush, with Pentagon clearance, is giving this congressional testimonies about the crash retrieval program. But everybody in the media and Congress are, at the end of everything, they boil it down to the absolute stupidest thing you can imagine. They look at him and say, does this mean we're not alone in the universe? My Lord. I mean, here you are being told point blank, there's aliens and they're crashing on Earth. And and they've been here for, thousands of years, and they're saying, oh, does this mean we're not alone in the universe? Nobody's asking the right questions, which is, well, they've been here so long, what the heck have they been doing? Yeah. And then secondly, are you telling me that a civilization that can build an interstellar spaceship that can cross the entire galaxy, defend itself from any hostile acts that could happen in the way, and as soon as they get here, the motor breaks and they crash? Like, why are they crashing? This is like, are they incompetent? Do they need a mechanic from Pep Boys? I mean, like, seriously, why are they crashing? And so we're doing a whole project. One release is out, and we got 3 releases to go. And what's happening is that the U.S. has a secret space program. Okay. And that secret space program is being funded by the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that the Pentagon says it lost. Now, you can't tell me that the Pentagon, on record, saying we have lost track of $2 or $3 trillion over the years. Now, with all that money, you're telling me they couldn't hire an accountant? They obviously know where the money is. Yeah. Where the money is going. I can see losing $10 or $100 even, but $2 or $3 trillion? That's hard to. so what it's being used for is the secret space program, and the secret space.
Courtney, I'm gonna grab you. You have given us an incredible amount of information, and for our viewers who are going to be listening to this, I feel like we need to 100% clarify a couple of things real quick. One, your remote viewing techniques, you started with the basis that the U.S. military had done, yes, but they were enhanced and modified by extraterrestrials.
Yeah, they helped us a lot. I tried to do it all by myself, and I was incompetent.
Okay, so with them, so the remote viewing techniques you're using were modified by extraterrestrials telepathically to you to get to where they are now, correct?
Not necessarily telepathically,
or no, also physically. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they nudged us. They said, "Well, try it this way, try it that way. Why don't you add this? Why don't you add that?" Until we finally got. And the procedures are sufficiently complicated now that we use templates for everything, because no one can remember everything to do.
Okay, so that is, and you also have regular meetings with Harvey, who is the name you've given to the aliens and their entourage that show up that are invisible, that communicate with you telepathically.
Yeah, but we've been meeting with others, not just Harvey. It's just that Harvey's one that's doing this particular show with us. Now, what I was explaining though is why they're invisible.
Yes.
In the shows that we're actually releasing this month and next, it's on UFO crashes. We show why they're crashing. They're being shot down. Okay. They're not crashing because the motor breaks. They're being
shot down by?
They're being shot down by American spaceships that are being used, and other weapons that are based on Earth, both in space and on Earth. They're shooting them down with technology that has been given to them by and explained to them by what we call the bad ETs. Now, what is going on is David Grush has told us, everybody, and plus other whistleblowers, many of them have said there are crash ships, they're being taken. Now, I can prove to you right now, just using logic, that the American space program exists and that it's using it for weapons technology, weapons transfer. Let me show you. Here's the logic. Okay. I'll prove it to you. Prove it. And I'm a mathematician, so, proving something means something. If you were an admiral or a general, and you had a crashed alien spaceship, are you going to take that ship and put it out in the desert and then have all your troops surrounded in a circle and put a campfire in the middle and then sing Kumbaya for year after year? Is that what you're going to do with it?
I think that's what Stephen Gray did. That's how he started out.
What you're going to do with it, you're going to point to it and immediately you say, I want one of those. I want a whole bunch of them. I want them. How long does it take for me to have half a dozen of them? 2 dozen, 3 dozen? They're going to want those things immediately. That's what's going to happen. So this thing that David Grush has been talking about, crash retrieval, reverse engineering stuff, and the trillions of dollars that have been, quote unquote, lost by the Pentagon. What is that? Okay, well, they have been building ships. And what happens is the Americans can go up and they can shoot down these ships. Now, something else we have done at Farsight is we are data driven. Most of the whole disclosure movement is based on he said, she said. You'll have people say, I have spoken to a trusted authority. I have I have debriefed this one. I have briefed this one. Nobody's talking about personal firsthand stuff. At Farsight, everything is data driven. It's either raw remote viewing data that we record live on video, totally solo and blind. You can see the actual data yourself, or in the case of showing that the extraterrestrial ships actually exist, we have been pioneering since the beginning of 2023, showing people how to take video recordings on demand in any 10, 15-minute time period you want in the middle of the day of UFO spacecraft that are right above your head. Not in some fancy place in Bolivia that you got lucky. Wherever you are, I can go there with the cameras. We can turn them on, analyze them, and you'll see them. They're all using stealth technology. It's like Grand Central Station up there. There's zillions of these ships, and they're all using stealth technology. Those are not the ones that are being shot down. Those are being flowed by what we call the bad ETs. There's zillions of them. They're not being shot down. The good ETs, that they are the ones that have been working with us since the very beginning. Those ships are the ones that are being shot down. They're trying to help humanity because the bad ETs are doing bad stuff. And so what basically happens is, go ahead, Ollie.
Mike, Ollie.
Mike, you have to turn your mic on.
Are the good ones up in the sky with the bad ones as well? Are they sharing the same airspace?
They share the same. The good ones actually dominate in the solar system militarily. There is no technological military advantage over either side. But in terms of quantity, the good ones dominate heavily in the solar system. They put a ton of resources here. But on Earth, this planet is run by the bad ETs. They have written agreements to work with governments. They're helping the governments do weapons transfer, technology transfer. That's why they're doing it. And the good ETs didn't want them to get into technology transfer for weapons stuff. So they made these written agreements with the bad ETs. The good ETs have a fanatical adherence to something we call free will. If you make a free will decision to do anything, including to be a slave, they'll say, well, what can we do? It's your choice. The good ETs have been trying to create and encourage the disclosure movement. They have been responsible for basically winning the hearts and minds of the masses. To give you an example, they're the ones who've been dropping ideas into the scriptwriters' heads in Hollywood for decades to get Star Trek, Star Wars, Matrix movies, all the major films out dealing with extraterrestrial type of stuff. They drop ideas in the middle of the night. Now they're free will ETs, so they can't force the script writers to do anything. But when the script writers wake up, he or she says, I got this great idea for a new episode. And then you get this new episode coming out. And that's where you get all the Star Wars stuff of the war that happened in the galaxy. That's where you get all the interactions between species that you get with Star Trek, and the idea of a prison society that you get with Matrix. That all came out of the ETs dropping these ideas. And then, so this is stuff that the bad ETs never wanted to actually come out. But so what we have here is we have shown people, and I'm going to show you here on right now. Later on in the podcast, some of the videos that we take, and we actually show you how to replicate absolutely everything.
Bring them up.
So you can actually see the extraterrestrial spacecraft. Now, these spacecraft are not the good ETs. They're the bad ETs. That's why they're not being shot down. But let me get back to one thing first. Why are the meetings that we have with the extraterrestrials, why are they invisible? Because if they become visible even for a second, they're a shot. It's risky for them to come here. The bad ETs have high levels of tech. Now you can say, well, why are the Americans ones that are shooting? Because there's a Cold War going on right now between the bad ETs and the good ETs. And it's risking bursting out into a hot war. The bad ETs know they cannot shoot down the ships of the good ETs or they'll get a hot war. However, they can give the tech to the Americans and the Americans can go out and shoot them, and they know that the good ETs will not shoot down or defend themselves from the American ships, because then that would make the Americans think that the good ETs are the aggressors, and that would throw them into the hands of the bad ETs even worse.
So what you're saying is Earth and the U.S. are hosting a proxy war for two different intergalactic powers.
The U.S. has become a lapdog mercenary military force for the bad ETs, and the bad ETs are taking advantage of this because they know the good ETs won't shoot them down. Don't think for 1 second that the good ETs couldn't wipe out the entire American space program in one just blink of an eye. They have weapons that have been used across the entire galaxy. They don't shoot those down because they don't want to be seen as the aggressors. And when the actual ships get shot down, the ships crash, but there's also survivors. Those are my people. Those are people I know. Those are people that are good people that are here to try to help humanity. And when they get shot down, the Americans capture them. They put them in a safe house, they debrief them a little bit, and then they hand them over to the bad ETs. And the Americans are not responsible for what happens to them. But once they get into the hands of the bad ETs, they're tortured. And that's what's happening.
Is it too early in the podcast to ask what the end game is?
The end game is very clear. No, we can go back and forth, because I'm going to bring up all types of stuff, and then you're going to interrupt me and ask me to go back and forth and all types of things.
You're definitely throwing a lot of information. So yeah, that
just quickly before you answer Lee's question, just so I can picture it. The good ETs, are those the greys?
No. There's species of greys and all the other species on both sides. You can't tell the difference by looking at them. They were gray guys that were on the side of my bed every single night. I have a daughter that works in one of the ships up here, the good ET. She's a hybrid. She's a half daughter. She's a half sister to my son, who's fully human. The good ETs are all different species, and the bad ETs are all different species. That's
so
like
it's a galactic split, right? They just pick this side and this side.
It's a political thing.
So what are the political ideologies that separate them?
It's very clear.
Okay.
It's the same thing that we deal with, as above, so below. It's like what you had with the Nazis and what you have with the Allies. You have a totalitarian, authoritarian force that believes thoroughly that the only way you can progress and make society perfect is by forcing everybody to do to follow some type of a grand plan. The Nazis actually thought they were doing something good. They thought they were actually cleaning up the world. They thought that they needed to get rid of things that they thought were bad. They thought they were impure. The Allies, and that included the Brits and the Americans, the French, and everything, they said, that's crazy. You're talking about killing everybody. So the point is that when people sort of think in terms of galactic ideology, think in terms of fascism, authoritarianism, and totalitarianism versus free will. However, the issue of free will is much more fanatically adhered to by the good ETs. It really sometimes.
So it's free will and control.
Free will and control.
Free will and control.
Okay. So back to Lee's question with endgame. What is the endgame?
Yeah. The endgame is very clear. This galaxy has been exposed already to a Holocaust that went on like 1 million years. It was way worse than the Holocaust that went on in World War II. With all the millions of people that were killed in World War II, this was worse, way worse, because they had better weapons in the galaxy. Imagine the Nazis with super weapons. That's what happened. And so when there was a Holocaust, it's basically died down now. It's sort of tampered down. It's good. The aggressive, hostile, authoritarian forces aren't so bad anymore. But there's a leftover, and the leftover is Earth is a prison that was run by the bad ETs, by the authoritarian forces. And it doesn't have, the original authoritarian forces don't have much influence or control over it anymore. But there's a group within the bad ETs that we call the reptilians, but they're actually multiple. But in terms of the bad ETs, the reptilians are top of the food chain. And most people on Earth don't even know that any extraterrestrials exist, let alone that reptilians exist. And that's the way the reptilians want it. That's the way that the bad ETs want it. So the point is that the bad ETs have an agenda. And the agenda is the same as what you had with the Nazis, which is expansion. Expansion, grow or die. And what they see here is one of the greatest resources that's ever been given to them. They got 8 billion physical human beings on the planet. Now, there's more though. We don't use the word soul or spirit because all the religious garbage that goes along with it. We use the word Isby, someone who is for the purpose of being, nothing else. You are all Isbys. We are all Isbys. I'm an Isby. We're indistinguishable as Isby. We're Isbys. And we live in these physical bodies. Now, the ETs understand this very, very intimately. They know all about the Isbys. You can't get a physical body of any type to do anything unless there's an Isby inside of it. There's a reason why most people on Earth, almost everybody, doesn't even know that they have an Isby. The Isby is them. They don't even know it. They say, do I have a soul? And then you go to religions and your religions say, we can save your soul. You know, think of how crazy this is with religions. If you get on your knees and beg for forgiveness, right now, get on your knees and beg for forgiveness, you can be granted eternal life. But if you have a bad thought, if you don't get on your knees, you're going to be banished for eternity in the fires of hell. Now, how stupid is that? Eternity is forever, right? And then they'll be granting you eternal life. It's eternal life no matter which way you turn. The whole thing is a crock of garbage. So the point is, you cannot kill an Isby, no matter what. And our understanding, no one in the universe has figured out a way to kill an Isby. But you can capture an Isby, you can enslave an Isby, you can lie to an Isby, you can trick an Isby, you can do all manners of bad things to an Isby, you just can't kill an Isby. And so the how many Isbys are we talking about? Well, we got 8 billion physical human beings. That means there's an Isby in each one of them. And then you have how many billions in the wings that are ready to be recycled back in? 30 billion or something? You have a huge number of Isbys. Now, do you realize
like reincarnation almost? Like the soul
reincarnation is a stupid word to describe the process of Isbys recycling back into physical form because of the prison system. They can't escape from the prison system. Death used to be a means of transportation. You know that in other pieces, but that doesn't happen anymore. That's another whole story. We'll get to it. But the point is, do you know how in other areas of the galaxy, when you die, you don't lose your stuff? You don't lose your house. You don't lose your bank account. You don't have to write a will. When you die, you keep your house, you keep your car, you keep your bank account, you keep your spouse, you keep your family and your friends. Everybody knows you just don't have that body anymore. You can get a new one, or you can recycle through with a young baby, but you don't lose your stuff. Here you lose everything, and then you have to write up a will to hopefully distribute it the way you want. Otherwise, the vultures will come in to get you. This is a crazy planet. Go ahead, Oli. I mean, I can see you wanted to ask.
I was just saying, you don't lose your spouse, so like you
don't lose anything because no one.
You die of old age, you come back as.
But yeah, because you don't lose your memories. In this planet, what happened during the Soviet Union and during China under Mao Zedong? You couldn't get out. Prisons work because they don't allow you out. And the most important thing to keep the Soviet Union as the Soviet Union and China under Mao Zedong was information control. It wasn't so much the borders, physical borders, it was the mental stuff. It was a psychological prison more than anything else. And as soon as the psychological stuff broke down, such as the psychological stuff of the former Soviet Union, information from the West got in, the whole Soviet Union just collapsed. There was no revolution. They just walked away. And so that's the issue with the prison. Earth is being run as a prison, and part of the prison is psychological information control, and the other part of the prison is you don't let people escape. So when people die, it's all done by tech. When you die, you pop out and you see the light. You've heard that story a zillion times. Near death experiences, you see the light. It's right, there is a light, but it's tech, for goodness sake. It's tech. It's a wave that it hits you and it draws you in. And then the closer you get to it, you get sticky and you can't get out of it. The more you fight against it, the more you get entangled. And then it blasts you with an electric bolt that's way higher voltage than lightning. And you lose your memory. You also lose your capability of telepathy, which is the normal way of communicating in the galaxy. And you lose your capability of remote viewing, remote perception. You don't remember any of this. And then an AI guy comes in and says, "This, you've heard about this so many times. I'm just telling you with this stuff, but this is what really happens." An AI guy comes in and says, "Oh, but we've been talking about your case with the Council of Elders. Oh, do you see the Council of Elders over there? Yeah, we've been talking about your case, and we think, remember those arguments you used to have with your son and your granddaughter? Oh, and your mother, you had a difficult time with your mother. I think what you need to do is we think you need to go back and work on a couple of these personality issues. Now, with no memory, then they say, but it's your choice. It's free choice. You decide. But with no memory and your telepathic and perceptual capabilities have been rattled, the person inevitably says, sure, sounds good to me. I need to work on a couple of those things. And they rep and they cycle back in. And then you get the reincarnation thing. And people start thinking about past lives and reincarnation because a little bit leaks through of stuff that they've done in the past.
Mhm.
But the basic point is it's a prison and people can't get out of the prison. And the reason people say, I have to know whether I have a soul or not, that's so crazy. Do you know that extraterrestrials think of Earth, of humans? They think of this as a planet of zombies. That's not a joke. They think of this as a planet of zombies, the dead yet undead.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not wrong on that. Why is this a prison planet?
Yeah,
Why is
I was
our
just gonna
people
ask
been
that.
imprisoned?
This used to be a real just prison. It was run by a group that we now call the Orion group, but they're not the ones that are dominating the prison now. It was taken over by the reptilians, but it was actually a prison, and people got thrown here. So, and the real question to everybody when they finally hear that this was a prison, they say, "Well, why am I here? What did I do wrong?"
Huh.
You know, when you're an authoritarian regime, anything you looked at the ruler's spouse with a little bit of a wink, then maybe he thought you were less than off you
No,
go.
I fully understand why I'm here. Believe me,
Okay.
I get it. Like that totally makes sense. I'm just curious why everyone else is too.
Maybe someone didn't pay their taxes. Maybe someone just looked at somebody bad the wrong way or something like that. There could be all types of reasons. There's also, in a place where the civilization has been going on for 1 million or so years, they've invented everything that can be invented. That's why there's no real technological advantage for either group of ETs with regard to weaponry. They've been around long enough that there's no new weapons that are going to be discovered. And when you've invented everything that can be invented and you've done everything that can be done, you've got a cash cow going. Everything's going smooth. And people who are creative, like you guys, having your own podcast, people who are creative, artists, inventors, scientists, things like that, they just want to go down and start doing things over again, reinventing and creating stuff, and it irritates the heck out of people. Look at what happened to Socrates. Socrates of all people, he was down in the Greek market, and all he was doing is asking people questions so that they would think about things. That's all he was doing. And what did they do? They killed him. They forced him to drink hemlock tea. That's what happens. So when you have a million-year civilization, they don't want artists and creative people like that around. So that's how come our planet, planet Earth, has the highest concentration of geniuses and creative people in the entire galaxy. It's a huge concentration, but that's also why we have such a high concentration of perverts. That's why we have such a high concentration of people that do crazy ass stupid things, that are violent, that do school shootings and stuff like that. Anybody that's disliked for any reason whatsoever got thrown here. And even now, mostly it's confined to this galaxy. But even in some other and some very close nearby galaxies, intergalactic travel is not so easy. But within the galaxy, it's pretty easy. But even in some intergalactic stuff, some civilizations said, we don't like these people are causing real problems. They're real perverts. I mean, they're real, like they got some mental issues.
Mhm.
So they'd say, well, if we can, there's a prison over in the Milky Way galaxy. If we throw them there, they can't get out. And if they ever do get out, they're in another galaxy. So they probably won't find their way back here.
Mhm.
So that's how people got here.
So,
So
what you
we're
were saying
Australia.
before, I forgot the words we used, but for essentially for souls.
Isby.
Is me.
So, am I right in thinking that like human beings are essentially just vessels? So if there's these
The bodies.
so if these Isbys are there waiting to be recycled, they don't all necessarily have to be human Isbys.
No, of course not. I've been many things, and so have you. If you want to know, you want me to show you an extraterrestrial, look in the mirror. You think you're all humans? No humans that are on this planet evolved here. You all came from some other place. You just don't remember where you came from. You don't remember any of that stuff. And the question is, you should be asking, why don't I remember? It's a good question, because in other areas of the galaxy, you do remember. But if you get zapped with what we call the death traps, which is the recycling system, you lose all that memory. Now, it is possible theoretically to get the memories back. You can't detach the memories permanently, but it's difficult. And even among the extraterrestrials, they haven't really fully mastered the technology, the therapy that's needed to connect it. But technically, they know it can be done, even though it's a work in progress. But Lee, you asked the question, what's the end game? The end game is the same with the Nazis. They marched into Eastern Europe, then they went to Western Europe, then they marched into North Africa. It was to expand as far and as fast as they possibly could. The end game is the reptilians. They're what's left over of the very bad Holocausts that happened in terms of the authoritarian types. And the end game is expansion. And to expand, they need a mercenary force, and they need zillions of ISBs to be that. They need ISBs to be the prostitutes, to service those military people. They need traders. They need everything that you need. They need people to make the trains run on time if they use trains. The point is, they need that whole kit and caboodle. And one of the reasons that the good ETs are here in such dominance in this galaxy, there is such a thing as multiple timelines. It's not just one simple reality. It has to do with the way they use for technology to get here in the first place. The good ETs have noticed that if and when the fascists, the authoritarian ETs, expand into the galaxy, you get another Holocaust, and it's worse than the first Holocaust. It's horrific, and its nexus is here. This is where they get all the people to do it. Not the physical bodies. The physical bodies, you can toss them. No one dies. You can toss the physical bodies. It doesn't matter. And they have ways of taking bodies literally off the shelf. Both the good ETs and the bad ETs had that fully understood. And in terms of going into the ships, when in the so-called abduction literature. Now, the abduction literature has been pioneered by people like Professor David M. Jacobs, who wrote Walking Among Us. He was a professor at Temple University. And of course, you also had John Mack, who wrote Abduction. He's a professor at Harvard. And so on. There's only three of us. John Mack is dead. David M. Jacobs is retired. I'm the only standing professor. Remember the saying I told you in the beginning? You just have to live long enough. So I'm the only I'm the only tenured professor, even untenured professor in the entire planet.
You look pretty young, mate. You look quite young. You don't look old.
I live longer than the normal human. So but it's always using normal human tech. So I was taught how to extend the lifespan so that I don't expire. The expiration of normally 6 years.
You are older than you.
You're young enough to be my grandkid.
Oh.
I'm 71 right now.
You look great for 71.
Yeah, and I won't look any different or act any different 20 or 30 years from now.
So
40 years.
Before we go, because again, it's a ton of information to process. You're definitely going at lightning speed. We're going into the abduction phenomenon and with good and bad. And you've also referenced that you have a hybrid daughter.
Yeah, she's wonderful. And I sit next to her on the bench on the ship. She has like a panel. She works in the ship and she has a panel. It's more complicated than the computer panels that we have. It's sort of think of it like as a Tesla dashboard on steroids. And it's sort of nice. And she shows me what she's doing. And she's very proud of me that I'm working here on Earth. She knows I'm working to help her family and other people, friends and so on like that. And I didn't raise her, mind you, I didn't raise her. But she's my daughter. And then I did raise my son, but he's here. And my son and I have a history from before we were here on Earth, and we remember it. We both remember it clearly, why we came here and so on. But we had to come in as prisoners. We had to be born here. We couldn't fly in. And this is our job. And so I'm not holding any of that information back. But I had to go through the entire human experience, be born here, the whole thing. If I came in here as an extraterrestrial on a ship, I would have been shot and captured and handed over to the bad ETs. That's what they do to everybody. That's why we have the meetings with the ETs, and they have to stay totally invisible. Now, they are armed to the teeth, let me tell you. They have, and I can see them. You couldn't see them. And when we put them on video camera, you can't see them, but I see them clear as day. And but we have had meetings where you could see them, but in general speaking, if they were visible, they would be attacked in the blink of an eye. So they all have stealth tech that can evade. Normally, that they can evade the hostility of the tech that the Americans have to shoot them down. And we typically have the meetings near military bases where that side of the military is supporting us. That's what, meaning there are U.S. military bases that support what we do. There are the U.S. military is totally fragmented. Half of them want us wiped off the planet Earth. The other half is supporting us and keeping us protected and keeping us alive. So we have meetings in relatively safe places. But even then, if any of our people, if any of the ETs, the good ETs are captured, you got to watch our projects that are coming out on the UFO crashes. You want to know what happens to them? Those are not the good ETs. Those are not the bad ETs that are being shot down, and those are not the good ETs that are shooting. The good ETs are voluntarily. They don't try to get shot down. They try to avoid the problem. But when they're confronted with American space program ships, or if they're shot with technology from the ground, they don't defend themselves. They let themselves get crashed, and they let themselves get captured, and they know full well they're going to be tortured and enslaved. That is heroism if I've ever seen it. But they have to do it, because if they defended themselves, the Americans would say, oh my gosh, they're the aggressors. So and they would throw everybody into the hands of the reptilians even worse. And that would defeat the whole purpose. The whole purpose is to break the prison down.
So why don't the good ETs release the prison?
I've asked them point blank about that, but it's very clear. If we Americans were to say, the problem with Russia is that they live in an information bubble. They don't have a free society, and they have Putin he's getting elected and reelected. He's not really a democratic leader, and the Russians need to be freed. So they need us to invade them and break them out. So if we invaded, what would happen? As soon as we invaded through aircraft over the Kremlin, the entire Russian nation would rise up and say, no, help us. And they would demand that their military would fight the Americans. If we said, oh, the problem with China is they don't have a free internet. They don't have freedom. The reason they're hostile to us is because the Chinese people don't know the truth. We need to invade China. So if we invaded China, what would happen? The entire Chinese people would rise up against us.
I understand your analogy. My point is, so it's the technology that keeps the soul in the system and getting looped. Why don't they just sabotage the technology?
Okay, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. That's a great question. The issue is they can't invade for two reasons. Because they would end up fighting the humans as well as the ETs, the bad ETs. So then if they knocked out the bad ETs, what are they going to do with the humans? Send them all to re-education camps? So they can't invade until humanity, with disclosure, what we call catastrophic disclosure, rises up and says, no, this is terrible. We want the governments, to heck with the governments. We want them to align themselves with those ETs, not those ones. So then with the free will choice, the good ETs can intervene. Now, the question, why don't you start your question?
Just go by Dave. I just go by Dave.
Dave. Okay, Dave, tell me your question again.
So why don't they just sabotage the technology?
The death trap.
It's the technology that wipes the mind and keeps us trapped in a loop and doesn't allow us to go into the cosmos. So instead of you don't have to have an invasion, you just have to stop the linchpin, right? The funnel, the choke point that they're able to do this. Break that, and then we'll figure it out for ourselves.
That technology was developed over millions of years in the galaxy during the Holocaust. And it was used to keep civilizations inside boundaries. Otherwise, everybody would have left the fascist areas, and they wouldn't have had any people left. So that technology has been developed over like a million years. It's really very well done technology. It has been weakened, but it's hard to detect it. It's hard. It's like mines in a minefield. It's really hard to detect it, and it's hard to dismantle it. With rapid disclosure or catastrophic disclosure, as we say, this is this is the concentration of some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy. You have no idea how many smart and intelligent and creative people. As soon as they can be told that, in fact, these death traps exist, the creative intelligence of the humans will work on this problem, and we can solve this problem. But it's a problem of extremely advanced tech. Even among the ATs, it's hard to detect the things and to dismantle the things. Now, there has been some weakening. Starting around, say, 3,000 years ago, during the Egyptian pyramid days, when they were building the pyramids with ET tech, that was the last time that the so-called Orions, what was left over, the straight Orions, they were running the planet as they wanted to run it. People running around with loincloths, didn't know squat, and being totally impoverished and working with rock. That's what we would be doing today if, in fact, there wasn't an intervention. Some of the good ETs had an intervention, and there was a military confrontation that knocked the bad ETs out of their dominant position, running the place as a prison. And so the bad ETs then started to work from behind the scenes. That became more difficult, but the death traps still had not been taken down. And so what happened was, they knocked out a whole bunch of the ships, and they knocked out some of the bases, and it weakened the death traps. So the system doesn't work as efficiently as it used to work. That's why memory is starting to come back. That's why our architecture looks a lot more like the architecture of skyscrapers. That's the kind of architecture you get in the Orion system. You don't get these pyramid structures that the bad ETs were trying to get people to do. So our memories are starting to come back. That's how come we have technology. That's why you had this podcast with the technology, communication technology. It's starting to come back. That's why this is a very pregnant moment for the catastrophic disclosure moment.
So the death trap that you've termed the ancient technology is such ancient tech, and that's the problem, right? It's kind of like it's old technology that is a key fundamental part of a system. It's like older nuclear reactors. There's only a few people who really know how to run them.
Yeah, and it's really good tech in terms of it's really hard to get rid of it.
Yeah. So the other question I have is, so your daughter's on the ship, and she comes and goes. Have you thought about just like going
like
where? Loading up, because you have an out from the system, right?
This is my job. I'm here. I came here to do this job. My son came here to do this job. We're doing the job. Farsight's purpose is to create a library of everything that is to use consciousness as we are, as full ISBs, and to show humans that it can be done. If I dropped in from a ship and did it, you'd always say, okay, I did it because I was an ET. I had special powers. No. We had to do it as humans coming into the prison as prisoners, and we had to do it from within. And so the purpose of Farsight is part of the disclosure process. We needed a library of information that tells absolutely the total truth with nothing held back. Everything you're getting from mainstream is totally garbage with regard to the history of humanity. Everything from how the dinosaurs died off to what happened with everything, archaeological stuff. So we had to develop a streaming service so we could present this. And we couldn't rely on any type of mainstream venue, such as YouTube, for example, I love YouTube. It's great. We're YouTube partners. But the point is, it's run by the
minions of the bad side, right?
Yeah. And so they have censorship all over the place. They pop the videos off. So we had to have our own streaming service, and our streaming service, it had to be one that's instantly scalable from thousands to millions within a blink of an eye. And so we use our streaming service technologically and in terms of capabilities run by Vimeo, but it's totally equivalent to Disney, Paramount Plus, Hulu, Netflix, whatever.
You had mentioned that you have video and picture evidence. Do you have any that you could share with us? Because we're getting a lot of those questions in the chat. We'd love to see it.
Yeah. Let me present. Mind you, I'll show you a few. But we do this. We do this on demand. This is not something they were lucky. We do this on demand whenever we want.
That's incredible.
And so let me just show you something. I'll share my screen, and let me share the screen here with you. And let me go to. Okay. Now the ones I'm going to show you are on Instagram. Now, the reason we use Instagram, you should be seeing my Instagram page at this point. Okay. Now that my Instagram page is Courtney Brown Farsight. This is sort of an entry. It's all one word, my name and then Farsight, no spaces. And the reason we use Instagram for this is because Instagram is really great because it's on your phone, and you can you're carrying around a computer with your phone. That's what your phone is, a computer. You're carrying around it all the time. And in a blink of an eye, almost everybody has Instagram. They can get instant gratification of types of things like this. But what I'm going to show you is I'm not trying to convince you that our pictures are the holy grail that you must believe. I am not doing that. What I'm trying to say is these are the ones that we have done, and we're also trying to show you how to do it yourself, so that when you do something or when you see a picture like the ones I'm going to show you, the cockroach debunkers, which are the people that come in and say, oh, it's a smudge, it was a glitch. They'll do that to anything that you come up with. Yeah, it was Photoshop, it was CGI. But they can't debunk it if you do it. So in addition to showing you what we've got and telling you we do this on demand, we also show you how to do it. And on our website, which I'll show you next, I will show you the exact instructions. Do X, Y, Z, and you can get the exact same results. So let's take you, first of all, to the Pensacola Naval Air Station. Now I'm going to show you a still first. So you see this still? That's 4 Blue Angels jets doing an air show over the Pensacola Naval Air Station. And you see the UFO right next to it on the right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. You want to see the video of that? There it is, the 4 Blue Angels jets. And they're going about 500 miles an hour. And that UFO is going a little less than 20,000 miles an hour. And so they go really fast. And so we have learned how to evade the stealth tech. Now that UFO was totally invisible light.
So the filter that's been put on this, is that what you use to see these things?
We use cameras called Panasonic Lumix GH6. Mm-hmm. And we were able to get them in December of 2022. And it's an interesting story about how we were told to do that. But and then we had to ship them out to a company called Life Pixel, where we had them converted to full spectrum. And then we use lenses, we use filters on top of our lenses to dial in the particular infrared band that we need in order to see these things. And then we have to take the footage, because they're going typically 20,000 miles an hour. And so what happens is you have to then take the footage and put them into, you have to shoot it at 120 frames a second. You also have to shoot them wide angle, because you can't use your zoom on the camera because you can't see them. So you can't zoom in on something you can't see. So you have to shoot with wide angle, and then you have to put it into your video editing program. We use Adobe Premiere, and slow it way, 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 way down.
Have you got the original?
What's that?
Do you have the original of this?
I don't have the original here, but the only thing you'd see was the Blue Angels jets. You wouldn't see any. I think I probably have some Blue Angel jets here just flying. You won't see the originals, so you can't see anything.
I think it would just be good context for people watching, wouldn't it? You know, because it's
I'll show you,
so highlighted.
I'll show you another one. This will satisfy you. See that cigar-shaped UFO?
Mm-hmm.
Just watch it. See it past the airliner? Notice the cigar-shaped UFO is getting, it buzzed this is over my house in Atlanta. It was flying over my house a whole bunch of times, and we caught it a whole bunch of times. So, but you see it's also getting shorter as it's going along, and that tells you that it's going upward as well. So now we analyze the speeds of these things to be around 20,000 miles an hour, but I don't do it myself. The person who estimates the speed of these things is a guy called Lincoln Lounsbury, and Lincoln Lounsbury has his own YouTube page, but he was the senior air traffic control guy in Washington, D.C., in the Washington, D.C. airport. That's the big one, the Ronald Reagan, the international one. And he was like the top dude there. Okay, and he's also written papers for aeronautical journals, and he's been a consultant for the FAA. It goes on and on and on. He was the one who came to us in November of 2022 and told us how to do this. And he came to us and said, we think you should do this. And he came with a PowerPoint presentation, Excel spreadsheets, and lots of video examples. He told us the camera to get. He told us where to send the camera to get it converted to a full spectrum. He told us what infrared bands to use. He told us everything. So I'm not saying I'm a genius and I figured this whole stuff out. That's why I try to tell people where we got some of the procedures for remote viewing. I don't want people to think that I'm a genius and figured it all out myself. So he told us everything. And it's a good question to say, how could such a senior person come to our house on his own aircraft ticket and show us all this stuff? So anyway, so we did it. And when we did it, that's what we saw. Here's another one. This is also, by the way, over Pensacola Naval Air Base. And you see this one? It zips across the sky, then it goes and it tunnels between the trees, and it's flying right over the Pensacola Naval Air Station right there. Now, that thing, totally invisible light, using infrared only, and also it was going at 20,000 miles an hour. Now, the speeds are being estimated by Lincoln Lounsbury, and that's what he does for a living. He's retired now. He just retired, in fact, but that's what he's been doing for decades. Watching things in the sky and estimating their speed. So he actually has to look at the original stuff, which you only see a blink. But we shoot it at 120 frames a second so that you can actually follow it. If you shoot it at 30 frames a second in the United States, or you guys in Britain, 25 frames a second, you don't see anything. All you see is a dot on the screen. If you took the Titanic and flew it over your house at 20,000 miles an hour, you're not going to see anything. So the point is, you have to shoot it really fast frame rates, and it has to be shot in 4K. And so that's basically, what we do. Now, we have a lot of other UFOs that are like orbs.
Connie, do you, on your website, do you have any of the raw files of these? Because for people in the UFO community to download.
We typically don't put up the raw footage. They're big files because they're 4K files, and they're big. But what we do is the following. Let me see
if somebody from MUFON wanted to get hold of them, you could send them to MUFON.
No, we do something much better than that. Let me tell you, what are you looking at now? Are you looking at the Farsight Institute, or are you still looking at my Instagram page?
No, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, just asking.
No, just tell me, what are you looking at now? Are you still on my Instagram page?
Yeah.
Okay, let me share a different page.
Courtney, while you find that, we have two questions from the audience. One is, do you have any, because we were talking about doing meetings with ETs earlier and physical, and do you have video of that?
Everything, they don't show anything physical. It's all they're invisible when we do that, but they're communicating with us. And if you want to know why, it's the projects that we're releasing this month and next. If they're physical in any way, shape, or form, they're shot. They're captured. They can't do. It's the best they can do. But I am showing you the ET ships right now.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm just telling you, they're not the ones we meet with. Okay. If those are the ones that we were meeting with, they would be shot down. We wouldn't be video recording them.
Okay.
Those are the bad ETs.
Yeah, I understand. So the second question is Jennifer Siami.
It's Jennifer Siami, yeah.
Siami.
The lovely Jennifer. Thank you.
Why did I experience a complete glitch in my reality?
Jennifer's an experience that we've had on the show before.
Yeah. And she had a glitch in reality.
I have no idea. One of the things you have to be able to say is that you have to be able to tell people what you know, and you have to be able to tell people what you don't know. And things like that, I don't know. However, I do not want you to believe just to hear what I say and believe. I'm not trying to get people that are followers. All I'm trying to do is to show you our information and to show you how to duplicate. And how to duplicate that information. Now, let me just say one thing with regard to the real question, which is, do you have the raw file? I don't want to get into a situation where people say, I want you to prove that your pictures are correct. Okay, so here I am right now on the Farsight Institute's webpage. You should be seeing that. Do you see that?
Yep,
we do.
This is farsight.org. Okay, now this is our homepage. On the 5th link down, you see a page that says recording UAPs or UFOs. I'm going to click on that. Now you should be seeing a page that says video recording UAPs, UFOs. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay. As you scroll down, all of the details are spelled out for you. You have the camera, the lens, how do you convert it to a full spectrum using live pixel, You get all the different settings that you have to put on the camera, your filters that you put on the lens. Everything is spelled out, every detail. The video editing programs that we use, Adobe Premiere, and the video editing programs and the steps you use with those editing programs to get the results. We tell you how to do it. So this is a backhanded way of answering your question. Do you have the raw footage? Do we want to investigate it? It doesn't matter. If I gave you the raw footage, someone's going to come and say we did it with CGI. You wouldn't be convinced. So the real thing is, you're going to be convinced when you take your camera out and you duplicate it and you get the exact same results in any 10 to 15 minute period right over your house. We get typically 10 to 30 UFOs. It's like they're up there all the time. It's like a huge buzzing of bees up there with UFOs, and they're coming all shapes and sizes. And we have a whole bunch of examples that you can see on my Instagram page. But
that
then,
I can vouch for, because Dave's took us to see some UFOs, and we did see UFOs.
So
I'm sorry.
you put up the technology or the instructions to get the technology modified so that people can get the information, raw data for themselves.
Now,
correct?
Lincoln Lounsbury is also on, we don't do this, but on Lincoln Lounsbury's YouTube channel, which is Lincoln Lounsbury, he actually shows people how to do it with iPhone. And you can do the same thing with a like an Android system. We don't do that because we need to get better types of footage than you can get with an iPhone. But it is possible to jury rig a mobile phone to be able to see the things, although you don't get the same quality as what we do. But he really has pioneered how to do that. What I'm trying right now to do is get the filter that he uses to. Oh, here it is. You know those 3D glasses? One's red and one's blue. And you put them over and you go and you see the 3D pictures of the movies. Well, if you take those lenses, those things, and cut them up so you have both lenses, and then staple them together, so you have the red and the blue together on one thing, okay? And he puts this on top of the camera on your phone, tapes it there. Well, what happens is, it's not the best, but it works. And the phones can only go up to 60 frames a second too, but nonetheless, you can still see stuff. What happens is the red lets in the infrared, and the blue basically together with the red blocks out the visible light. So look at this, it looks black, right? It looks like you can't see anything through it, but it's black only because it's knocking out the visible light on both the blue and the red. But I mean, the blue is letting in the blue and the red's letting in the red, but together it blocks out the visible light. But the infrared can still get through, because that's close to the red. And so what happens is the camera, which is looking for visible light on your cell phone, it's saying it's not seeing anything. So the automatic gain control of the camera that's on your cell phone goes crazy and ramps up the volume, the visual volume on the cell phone to let as much light in as possible. And the only light that it can get in is the infrared, because everything else is blocked out. And so you can actually see these things, but they're not as good as what I was just showing you, but it's still good enough for government work type of things.
So, yeah, I think that's a great tip for people to get the information on their own. I understand that.
And these things, let me say, these glasses cost $1 on Amazon or something like that. And you cut them up and you tape them on your camera. And Lincoln Lounsbury on YouTube, he's showing people how to do it. So, but we don't do that. We use really good cameras. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. So I was curious. So you're half human, half alien daughter. I'm very curious about that, and I've seen people mention it there. We kind of glossed over. So you didn't raise her; she was raised by her mother. How does that work?
I don't really know. She was raised. They raised him in a community up there.
Okay.
So, but she was raised on a ship. But she's my daughter.
Okay.
Biologically, she considers me her biological father.
So
how
Is
does
that so?
that
She's your daughter. Sorry, I think we'll ask the same thing. You are
I
Dave.
think so.
So is she your daughter from like your existence on the planet, not from
Yeah, this
before you
this
came?
this this physical body
Yeah.
has genes in it, and some of those genes are for her.
Mhm.
It's like if I had, I don't. Anyway, there's a long story short, but I didn't raise her, but she biologically is connected to me, and she is very proud of me, and I'm very proud of her.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. Was that like an abduction experience, or
No,
like,
I've been on the ships many times, but I've never been abducted. You get abducted by the bad ETs.
Yeah, it's the terminology is there. So
When
but-
John Mack wrote Abduction, he was talking about the people who were abducted and getting sexual abuse and all types of things with genetic experiments. And when David M. Jacobs was doing that, he was doing that. When he was researching that, and for example, his last book he wrote before retiring was Walking Among Us. They only have experience with the bad ETs, because if you're looking at people who have been abducted and you're helping them to, everyone who's been abducted by the bad ETs is giving a very powerful hypnotic suggestion to forget. Now that since they're given a hypnotic suggestion to forget, a hypnosis can be used to unforget. And so that's why John Mack and David M. Jacobs were able to get these people to come back and remember their things. But eventually they start remembering without that, because the mind gets used to it. And then they often had many experiences, many of them without having to use it. Sometimes they would call up David M. Jacobs in advance and saying, they're on my roof, they're coming in. And they would tell them, and they would, everything would be sort of open. But anyway, those were all experiences with the bad ETs. I've never gone through that.
Okay, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the only terminology that we know to use, right?
Why do you think I had?
You've been on the ship though, physically.
Yeah, when I was a kid, why do you think I had the two ETs, the two Greys on my bedside? So I'm sure they were there to protect me. They weren't abducting me. I certainly wasn't afraid of them. And
what's it like on this ship? I'm so like that.
It's human
Is
tech.
it a big ship?
Oh yes, these are big ships. But human techs are. But we should actually. I can't replicate that for you guys, so I like to focus on things that I can show you and replicate. But just to answer your question,
no, just like for my imagination. What...
Human tech is evolving in a way that is starting to look like the ET tech. So if you think of the inside of a Tesla on steroids a lot, that's what the inside of the good ET ships look like. Totally sterile environments. And they often don't want you to go up into the ships with your human body. They'd rather have you come up with the ISB, because they know that that's you. It's not the human body. But they like you there because you think of your human body, all human bodies, including mine, we've been exposed to measles, mumps, rubella. We've been exposed to chickenpox. We've been exposed to cytomegalovirus, Epstein-Barr. We've got COVID. We've got all types of viruses and stuff. Plus, we have waste disposal issues we have to deal with, going to the bathroom. So when you bring humans up and you're actually taking humans and going into a sterile ET environment, and like they don't want to get too close to you. It's like,
they don't have
so that was my question. So we're genetically compatible with, like, this physical flesh is genetically compatible with something.
A lot of the ETs look identical to you and me.
Okay, so this is a similar pattern in multiple places.
Yeah, but when you get popped out of your body and you go up as an ISB, you look just like them and they look just like you, and you can see them and they can see you. It's no invisibility thing. Even if they have a physical body, they can still see you. Like I can see them, even though they're using invisible tech or something like that. But the invisible tech, that's not a cheating thing. You should look at the stuff that David Grush is talking about with congressional stuff. It's dumbed down, but at least it gives you the idea that it's not in dispute anymore that these ET ships exist. I am showing you technology that tells you how to shoot those things with video cameras, your own video cameras, and see them clear as day. So obviously they're trying to hide themselves. So that's the proof. You want to know that they're bad ETs? If they were good ETs, they wouldn't be trying to hide themselves. Then you can say, well, why are the good ETs trying to hide themselves? Because the bad ETs are going to have them shot down by the American mercenary force. It's a very complicated situation. Before the podcast ends, please ask me to give some positive information. Right now, I'm giving a lot of negative information.
We'll definitely get there. One quick question. So So talking about things you don't want to speculate or talk about things that are hard to replicate or explain to us, and I understand that. The remote viewing techniques you use are what allow you and have trained you to be able to see the invisible cloaked aliens. Is that correct?
Well, no, the people become so good at doing the remote viewing.
Okay.
See, you see this pen?
Yes.
It's a big pen. Okay. Now, you're looking at it here with your eyes on the podcast, and it looks very clear. I take it away. Now, bring back the memory of that pen.
Mm-hmm.
You can still see it. You see it in front of your eyes, but it looks dimmer. It's foggier. It's fuzzier. Well, the remote viewing image is foggier and fuzzier still.
Okay.
So the remote viewers that we use at Harvard, I mean at Emory, are trained. They go through a year-long full-time training program before they can touch any of our progress. That's a lot of work, folks. And then they become really good at being able to lock on to visual images that are coming through what you might say coming through the ISB and then being blended into the conscious mind. The neurologists, not us, but the neurologists have told us that the actual images that you get visually through the eyes, as well as remembered images, are being projected onto a layer of cells in the screen in your brain. Think of it like a flat panel TV in your brain. But the remembered images are going onto that same thing, but it's not as bright as the ocular images. The remote viewing images that are coming straight through your ISB, they're dimmer and foggier still. But people become really good at that. Now, once you become good at that, there's really very little limitations with regard to what they can see. Okay. And so I can have an ET right next to me, and he can be trying to tell me something. You wouldn't see anything, and I'd look over and say, "What are you saying?" You know, I'd ask him what he was talking about. I had a girlfriend one time, and they didn't think they were very, very gentle. You know, you don't want to attack somebody's girlfriend. That gets a response. But they were trying to tell me that things weren't okay. Things that you had to, and like the guy, I was walking up my driveway to my door, and then he was right behind me, and he was like trying to get my attention. I just stopped and I turned around. I said, "What do you want?" And he just said, "You have to understand, she's XYZ." He was trying to say it as gently as possible. It was correct. There was an issue with the girlfriend. It wasn't going to work out. But the point is, you know, I can tell that these things are here. My son has had experiences where he was just thinking deep thoughts in the middle of the desert. He likes doing that. Think of him as Obi-Wan Kenobi that goes into the deep desert. He likes going out in the middle of the desert. Honestly, you'd think he was on Tatooine. Some of the places he goes, and he goes hiking out miles into the desert and just sits on a rock and meditates, and he comes back. Anyway, he was coming back one time. He had two ECs that were following him. He knew they were there, and he talked to them on the way back. Now, somebody else would have said, "That's crazy. You'd be talking to invisible people. You're just thinking." But in this business, in this business, you know exactly. And they were talking to him about stuff that he was worried about and concerned about, and things like that. But the point is that those types of conversations happen all the time. But when we put it on video, and we've had experiences with physical, real ET, like just there, but we don't. You know, we never put those on video. But the other ones we do put on video because they have been. Our side has said they want this on video. They want it recorded. And then we had to have a remote viewing project with 4 or 5 remote viewers, all totally blind to the target, working alone, not communicating with us. And all of them described the exact same thing, the exact location, the people on the beach talking, the conversations, what was going on. And they were shocked themselves when they were finally told after the whole project is over. By the way, when we do this stuff, we have a really great first-class studio. We record in a studio on green screen, or we have a $6,000 piece of optical glass and really perfectly set up. So when they're writing, it looks like they're writing and disembodied, like their heads, and they wear black suits. And so they look like they're disembodied, and it looks like they're writing on air. And it looks really great. But when they were all done with that, we have something called the target reveal, where they sit in sort of an interview setting, like a podcast, like what we're dealing with now, and they're told what the target is, and you get to see their response. You get to see how real it is. They're saying, "What? Are you serious? What going?"
Yes. So Courtney, just for Jen's question here for the super chat, Is it have you heard of people that have clear remote views? Because you said a lot of them are very hazy, almost dimmer than when you take the pen away, the imagination of that. Have you heard of other people that can have clear remote views?
We don't talk about what other people say or do. So we only talk about what we say and do, and we show you how to replicate what we say and do. We have our own streaming service where we show you everything that we have done, and our projects are easy to watch. And in addition, I'm going to show you one more thing. Okay, let me share my screen one more time, and let me show you. Okay, that will be.
So,
Sure.
Courtney, while you're getting that, I have a question for you while you're looking it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not too far from you, and I'm pretty intrigued. Would you be open? Like, so you have these various meetings with the Invisibles. You know, I'm not too far, and I would absolutely, if you would be willing, I'd love to come down and experience that or see what that is, or do an interview or video if you'd be open to that.
We only have people at those meetings who we're told are supposed to be there.
Okay.
And
Did a
so
request get put in?
it freaks people out, first of all, number one. And even among the Farsight people, it took a while for them to tell me when other people in Farsight were ready to do that. So
I'm confident that they will like me.
How many people? How many people?
Everybody likes me
now.
What's that?
Sorry, how many people are part of Farsight now?
We have 6 of us, and so it's a small group. But we had to work with a small group. We don't need many people to change the world. We need to show people that humans can do this. Anyway, I'm on farsightprime.com. Can you see actually that on your podcast?
Yep.
Okay. This is it's a streaming service. I'm just going to go here and I click on, and we have people can get it's like any streaming service. People though can get a free week where they sign up and get everything. We have a project we just released on. Believe it or not, it's an assassination plan that was planned for Robert F. Kennedy. And we believe it's totally stopped because of our project that we just did. We showed people what was being planned.
Sure, he's grateful.
Yeah, I don't even know if he knows about it, but we know for a fact that the military does watch absolutely everything we do. Their military intelligence is really great. And as soon as we put that project up, we had to put it up, but it goes into detail of exactly what the plan was to assassinate him. And I'm sure it's over now. I'm sure within 10 minutes of us putting the project up, the entire thing was killed. It's not, so that event is not going to happen. But anyway, but just take a look at this stuff. We have a zillion movies. We have like over 75, 80 movies of major projects. We did one on Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. We have the collaborators, the military people and political people who work with the bad ETs. We have a whole bunch of series that we often do as well. And in addition, which how to record UFOs. So we have a whole bunch of instructional videos explaining exactly how to position the camera, what kind of tripod use, the whole thing. We have a whole bunch of political stuff, including the Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but also the JFK assassination, the 9/11, the psychology of Adolf Hitler, and on it goes. A lot of archaeological stuff, the mystery of Pumapuku, the Great Pyramid of Giza. You know, and people can say, oh, well, I don't believe your stuff because it's all esoteric. What the heck are you talking about? But even what about the Great Pyramid of Giza? The remote viewers that were working there were Daz Smith and Dick Algar. So the Great Pyramid of Giza, in addition to getting the information of how the 80-ton blocks were moved from a quarry site long away and fit into place with perfect alignment. You can't even stick a human hair between them. And we cannot build the Great Pyramid of Giza today with human tech. So the real question is, why is it esoteric? In addition to learning how they did all that, they had to completely describe accurately the Great Pyramid of Giza. In fact, there were 5 pyramids there, and they had the desert. They had to describe the whole desert scene and everything. There was a ton of totally verifiable stuff they had to show as well. And then they also showed how the blocks were moved. And they did it under totally blind conditions. So we did it on Noah's Ark, Göbekli Tepe, the Eye of the Sahara, the Nazca Lines, and on it goes. Sodom and Gomorrah, and on it goes. We did things on Lao Tzu, the mystery of Lao Tzu, and also, you know, where we humans came from. The death traps. We have a project just on the death traps, a project just on the escape. We're investigating best ways to escape the death traps. And religion, we did one on Pope Francis. We did one on Lao Tzu, as I mentioned. Also Lucifer. We did one on Jesus and the crucifixion. Moses, and it goes on. And we did one on the good ETs and the bad ETs. A female reptilian who's a nice lady, actually, called Lacerta. This is the project, The Reality of Harvey. You want to see how it was done? And we have a whole series on the reality of Harvey. You can see all the meetings that we've had. And then we have a whole project on the Greys and a reptilian base on the moon. These are things that we do, and it goes on and on. We have projects on the war, the human war, and on Operation High Jump. That was the project that actually tricked the American government into signing those stupid agreements with the bad ETs, and a base on Mars. So this type of thing, these are all available. And there's one other thing I have to show you before we go
Absolutely.
on. I just have to show you this.
Is it a picture of an alien? Please tell me it is.
Okay, I'm going to get really close. So you want a picture of an alien? I'll get something really close. I'll give you a picture of an alien base. Will that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm at the Farsight's website now, and now I'm just going to go down on the first section on the celestial projects, and I'll go base on Mars. Okay, now this is a project we recently did on the base of Mars. Actually, we did it 3 times. Okay, now this is an actual base. Now, Haim Eshed, Haim, Haim, Eshed, Eshed. He's the former head of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years. And he's also a former decorated general, as well as now he's a professor and so on like that. But he's the one who said there was a base on Mars also. And he said that there are humans and ETs that operate on this base. Okay. Now, we did a whole project on the base. Okay. Now, let me give you a good picture of the base. Are you seeing the base now? Are you seeing the nozzle and the spray coming out of it?
It looks like hair.
Are you seeing it?
Tell
me what you're seeing on your
like a gray image.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I just looked at the podcast. You're looking at it right. You see the spray that's coming out of the nozzle in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a pipeline that goes there, and a pipeline follows into a dome at the bottom.
Okay.
There's actually 4 domes in that location. That's what the base is. Now, if you look at this picture, which is a really high resolution picture, it's sharp as a tack. It's sharp as could be. This is supplied by NASA, JPL, and Malin Space Science Systems. This is not one that I dreamed up. This is an official release. This picture that you're actually looking at, okay? And it's clear as day. You can see that's not a glitch. This is not CGI. This is an official release from NASA, JPL, and Malin Space Science Systems. Now let me go back. This is the web page on the Base on Mars project. Google Earth has a Mars option. So if you go on Google Earth and go to the Mars option on Google Earth, let's go to that exact spot. There it is, folks. Can you see? They're censoring it.
Glitched out.
It's censored. Do you see that? Do you see how it was censored? It's censored, clear as day. I was showing an Air Force pilot this, and he looked at that and he said, "What?" Because
so people try this at home. They go to that area, that exact area. You'll get that.
Look, Farsight is data driven, so we are not doing any he said, she said. Right around this picture on this page, you see the exact procedures for using Google Earth and how to type in the exact coordinates. It's right on this web page, and you click the enter button, and you will fly to it yourself, and you'll see that. You'll see this. That now you can't say that they don't have a clear picture. That's censoring because they have a clear picture because there it is. That's the clear picture. You can see it clear as day. So you can't say that Google Earth never got the clear picture. We have it. I'm showing it to you. So the issue is they're censoring it. And so you said, do you have a picture of an ET? I did one better. I showed you a picture of the whole base. Now that happens to be a base, and we did a whole project on that. And so you see, when we do a project always that has verifiables in it. We don't just say there's a base on Mars and this, you don't have no evidence. We show you the picture first, and then we say, you can see there's a base on Mars. And Haim Eshed, former head of the Israeli Space Director for 30 years. They said there's a base on Mars. And then I have had people attack it by saying, I had a military person, colonel, attack me on it and saying, oh, you're so stupid. How can we can't supply a base like that. Well, what do you think? They're obviously not using SpaceX rockets to supply that base. You obviously have to have the American secret space program in operation using ET tech to supply that base. So that's what's actually being used. So that's what we're in. Let me tell you, I've already told you, Dave, the bottom line is we're trying to prevent an expansion into the galaxy of this fascist prison planet that is being operated by the fascist authoritarian totalitarian forces. That's what they want to do. And they need that there's be mercenary force in order to do that. However, the only way to disrupt this is to free the whole planet. It's not by saving people one at a time, although that can happen. But the real thing is we got to break the prison down. And we can't break it down by attacking. That can happen at a later time, but not until humanity rises up and says, no, we're going to. So what we're trying to do is the bad ETs have learned how to control a psychological prison like this over millions of years. They know it down pat. They know every little way to do it. And it's very, very difficult to do it gradually because they have ways to counteract everything that's gradual. What we're trying to trigger is what we call catastrophic disclosure. And that's rapid disclosure. That's where everything comes out all at once. That's why I'm talking so fast and trying to get so much out in a short amount of time. I'm not trying to agree with you. I was talking to one military guy, and he was saying, Courtney, you're going too fast. You just focus on a small little piece. Like, is remote viewing real? Just that's as much as people can handle. No, that won't do anything. Anything that's inky-dinky, rinky-dinky, small thing like that can be countered in a second. For example, there's tons of published scientific studies on the existence of psi phenomena, on the reality of remote viewing. It's all come out slowly, dribbles and drabs, and they do statistical tests and things like that. And it's not changing anything. What is needed is catastrophic disclosure, but the whole 9 yards comes out all at once. And
well, you've definitely been painting with a fire hose. You asked us to ask you as we approach, and we are approaching towards the end, to go on the high note. What's the high note? What's the positivity?
The good ETs are here in huge forces. They have taken resources. Right now, there's a standoff in the galaxy. No side, the good ETs cannot beat the bad ETs, and the bad ETs cannot beat the good ETs. It's like the fascists, the Axis powers, and the Allied powers during World War II. They can't. Well, actually, the Allied powers did beat the fascist powers. But the point is that right now it's a standoff. This is a war-torn galaxy. But in this solar system, the good ETs have sent a ton of forces. There is a huge level of stuff, ships, military equipment. We way overpower the bad ETs that are running this planet. But the bad ETs are pulling this thing off because they're exploiting the loophole, knowing that the good ETs won't do squat as long as there's a free will agreement to work. They will allow you to enslave yourself. If you say, no, I want to be a slave of the reptilians, that's fine. They'll say, okay, we tried our best. What they're trying to do is a psychological prison run by masters in psychology. And so they're trying to trigger rapid disclosure, sudden disclosure that the bad ETs cannot control. We have discovered over the years, over many, many, many years, the bad ETs can control anything if it happens slowly. But if it's an avalanche of information that comes out suddenly, they cannot control that. And that's what we're trying to do. And with that rapid disclosure, it'll get out of hands. The bad ETs will not be able to control the situation. And we're hoping that the humanity will rise up and make a choice, a free will choice. At that point, the good ETs can come in with sufficient forces to control the bad ETs, and the bad ETs will simply have to go. And then the geniuses of humanity can start working on discovering the location and dismantling the death traps. And we can start taking this prison system down. And
what
release.
What is called?
What's that?
What are the baddies called and what are the goodies called? Because we keep saying bad ETs, good ETs, but
They use all types of names. They use all.
Do you know what the races are called?
Oh, the races are everything that you can possibly imagine. They have the
Yeah, but
Greys.
do they have like names? Like
Oh, yeah.
we hear Zeta
Species names.
from Zeta
Yeah.
Reticula and stuff like that.
They
Do
have
you-
they have names, and generally speaking, they have homogeneous orientation. So if you go to a planet where one of the species are, they're basically all that same type. Earth is very unusual because it has so many different varieties of humans here, and other sentient species like dolphins. Dolphins, for example, porpoises have larger brains than humans have, but they use them for different reasons. But the point is that Earth is very unusual in that there's such great variety among the human population, both culturally as well as physically, and in the way we look. And that's not normal in the galaxy. It's actually quite abnormal. So, but they come in all shapes and sizes, the ETs, and a lot of them look exactly like you and me. If one of you was an ET and just popped off a ship, we'd never know it just by looking at you. But they have the Greys, they have the insectoids, they have human types, and they have some good reptilians. Not many, but they have some good reptilians as well.
Well, that is interesting. We have two questions from.
Wait a second, I got the good one. I want to make sure I say.
Sure.
We wouldn't be here. The good ETs wouldn't be here. It was such resources if we didn't believe we could pull this off. Okay. Now is not the time to be despondent. Now is not the time to feel depressed. Now you should have been depressed 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. That was the time to be depressed. Now is the time to actually think it's possible. The good ETs have not left the system, and we're not going to leave the system until we find out what the free will decision of humanity is after the disclosure. That's it. Now is the most positive moment in human history ever.
Hope. We don't end this show on hope a lot. That's good. I like hope. Well, Courtney, we've had a great time talking to you. It's been a blast. It's been very, very interesting. There's a lot. For anyone listening to this or watching it, you're going to have to rewatch it to catch a lot of this. It was going fast. And again, if Harvey approves or any of them, let me know. Email the boys. I'm available. I'm telling you, they'll want me there. They'll like me. I'm a fun guy.
Okay. If you want though,
I'll brave traffic. No problem.
No. If you want though, there's you can actually enjoy since you use cameras anyway because you do the podcast, you'd actually enjoy following the steps and making your own video recordings. I was out doing an interview with Jeffrey Mishlev, and I arrived the day before, and I said, hey, Jeffrey, it says we have the afternoon free. Why don't we go out and shoot some UFOs? So yeah. we went to his house. I took my camera out and put it on his deck. We shot 15 minutes of footage, and we took it. I had a good laptop that we can analyze video stuff on. And later on in the evening, we saw UFOs right in the footage. So you don't actually have to go someplace to see the ETs.
I'm not even talking that. I live next to a secret government lab. That's no joke.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely. And if you're a professor, you're a mathematician, statistician, you could probably guess which city I live next to in Tennessee.
Well, I'll let you know. I go with what they tell me. If they tell me to start having open meetings, we'll start that. But
I didn't say open. Just me. I would like to be there when you guys do it. I just want to be there. Anyway, that's my humble request.
I
appreciate the time you've given us. It's been wild. It's been wild, man.
Can I leave with one statement?
Absolutely.
Just remember that both myself and all of Farsight, we are not he said, she said. I've never told you that we believe so-and-so a trusted source. We're data-driven. And we believe the only way to change this planet is by showing you the raw data and convincing you by you looking at the data that what we're telling you is the truth. All of our remote viewing, all of our projects, the video recording of UFOs, everything is based on raw data that we show you. It's not he said, she said. And the three things are, start with the Instagram page, Courtney Brown Farsight. It's free. You can walk in around with your phone. You can look at it like now. Secondly, go to farsight.org. Take a look at that Mars base. Convince yourself that it's being censored. Why would they be censoring it if it wasn't for real? and then ship over to farsightprime.com and just take a look at the incredible library. If you have a question about anything, we've got it in that library somewhere.
Absolutely.
Am I right in thinking you have a trial as well for Farsight, for the Farsight
Yes,
Prime?
for a week. People can just see everything for free. It's the whole streaming service is only $10 a month. However, you get a whole week for free, and that's you can just spend 24/7 on the whole week and just watch everything you can possibly watch. But we come out with new stuff. It's not like other streaming services are quite frustrating. When was the last time you saw something new come out of Disney with Star Wars, or something new come out with Paramount Plus with the Star Trek stuff? I mean, they go for like 9 months with nothing, and then but we come out with like 5 videos a month regularly every single month. So we have
a lot of content.
It's a ton of content. It took us a long time to be able to gear up to be able to do that kind of stuff. And it's cinematically really interesting.
Yeah.
We've never heard a complaint once that our shows are too long. So anyway, thanks for bringing me on, guys.
Thanks. We're glad to have you, man. And again, I'm looking forward to that invite. I'm telling you, Harvey's going to want me there.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind for sure.
All right. Thanks, Courtney. Boys.
Yep. Thank you so much. And we'd love to have you back. Guys, just remember to like, share, subscribe. All the links are in the description. And if there's Courtney was by request. We had some audience members saying, can you get Farsight on? And that is what that is. So we need to check this guy
out.
So yeah, if you want somebody on Alien Addict, shoot them a message, but let us know who. You can email us. Good night, God bless. Mind the bugs, don't bite. Like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz.
Ollie, even in these regular shows, people are still making fun of your tiny hands.
I can't help having time. My hands are normal size. Thank you so much, Fishlock, my lad.
Yep.
Maybe one day I'll join you with a beer.